Sharam Rubinirantaram Bhasate Swayam Likyate Hridaya Kuharamathe Kevalam Brahmamatram Mahiti Sakshat Atmarupe Hrudi Vishamanasa Swam Chinvata Majjata Chalanarotha Atmanishto Deham Mrunmayavat Jadatmakam Aham Buddhirnatasyaspyato Naham Tattathabhavashuddhi Samaye Siddhatma Saddha Bhavayuta Kuto Haradhiya Drishtatmanishta Soham Sputitaya Arunachala Shiva Purno Vibhati Swayam Soham Sputitaya Arunachala Shiva Purno Vibhati Swayam Namo Ramana. In this, the Thursday Satsang from Ramanacentre for Learning, it has been our practice to select 2 verses at random from the work Guruvachika Kovai, which is in the form of verses written by Muruganar Swamigal. The random selection is done by Raivatima. Each verse is read and the verse reading is followed by a short meditation on its meaning, and that is followed by the practice of Atma Vicharam for about 15 minutes. After these 2 segments,
Nandakumarji, sorry to disturb you. I think there's an issue with the volume. I'm not able to hear clearly.
Are the others able to hear?
Yes, sir, we can hear.
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
Oh, okay. Then let me just check mine. Thank you, sir.
No problem. No. That will be followed by the summing up remarks. Today it is going to be by Dileep Simhaji, and that will be followed by the chanting of Ashtotram. The chanting will be online by Vaibhavji and Pratnama, and the rest of us will be inquiring as to who is the listener. And the satsang will come to a conclusion with the conclusion of the Ashtotram. We begin with going to the first verse selected for us. The first verse is 21. This is in the first adhyayam, the first portion. After the prefatory verses are over, we have investigation into truth, then we have meditation on truth, and then finally we have anubhava or experience of the truth. Verse 21, we find in the investigation into truth, and the subsegment is the reality of the world. The reality of the world, verse 21. To the ignorant who believe it to be real and revel in it, the world that appears before them is God's creation. But to the steadfast jnanis who have known the bondage-free self by direct experience, it is merely a deluding and binding concept that is wholly mental. There is a note by the authors, not by Murugnar, but the authors of the English version of the Guru Vachapoi. Bhagavan generally taught that the appearance of an external world comes into existence as an act of projection by the individual eye that sees it. As such, it is very similar to the dream world, which is also a mental creation of the one who dreams. For those who are not able or willing to accept this explanation, he would say that it was God's creation. Irrespective of which theory one believes in, the external world is known to be a mere concept once the self has been realized. So what is the world? To the ignorant who believe it to be real and revel in it, the world that appears before them is God's creation, if they have belief in God. But to the steadfast jnanis who have known the bondage-free self by direct experience, the world is merely a deluding and binding concept that is wholly mental. So these are the significant Viveka teaching, that only if you take the world to be gross and so grossly real, that you get involved in those gross world relationships and objects with the attachment that you have towards all the gross objects. Whereas that attachment weakens the moment you understand this is only a mental projection. So the grip with which you are gripping the worldly objects will be loosened the moment you come to Pratibhasika Satya, not the Vyavaharika Satya, that as it is, the gross world is real. Then if you are having belief in God, then you will go with Bhagavan, who to such people who are not able to turn inward will say that is God's creation. So our prarabdha prakaram adarkanavan aangang irundha aattivippan என்றும் நடவாதது என் முயற்சிக்கணும் நடவாது நடப்பது என் தடை செய்யணும் இல்லாது இதுவே தீண்டும் ஆகலின் மௌனமாயிருக்கை நன்று ஹிம்சே. That means when Amma calls in from Tiruvannamalai to Madurai in the gross world, Bhagavan uses the ordainer, that the ordainer controls the destiny of all the gross objects. So the best mode is to understand that which is not to happen in the gross world will not happen. Try however much you may. That is to happen will happen. Try however much you may to stop it. This is certain, he says. So the turning inward is through surrender to the ordainer. Otherwise, you are totally engrossed in the world of objects, which becomes a bondage from which with great difficulty we extricate ourselves. Why it is called Jnana Marga? All the gross things and which are appearing to be so long and so protracted in the gross time, they all become mere thought forms when you take it inside. And self-enquiry becomes easier when you know it is not really Vyavaharika Satya, it is Pratibhasika Satya, that it is a mental projection. Then you can deal it at that subtle level itself by asking, for whom is this thought? you will understand you are not only taking the mind to the source, you are taking the gross world also to the source together with the mind. So the sadhana becomes less cumbersome, less attached, and more profound. That a whole lot of time, whole lot of space in the gross is covered in a single thought projected by the mind. So the moving to the Pratibhasika Satya in Viveka is a key aspect of easily practicing self-inquiry. That really the gross object first rises as a thought, then only projecting it through the senses, I see it as gross object. If one can understand this, then taking the world and mind to the source becomes that much more simpler and direct. With that Viveka, let us sit in practice of Atma-Ucharan for about 15 minutes. Revatima, you can set the time for us. Namo Ramana. We continue the satsang by taking the second verse selected for us, which is in the segment Meditation on the Truth. The verse number is 685. 685, Meditation on the Truth. Subsegment is Disciplining the Mind and the Senses. Disciplining the mind and the senses. The Atma Swarupa reality shines only in the state of Turiya, whose nature cannot be described as such and such. The Atma Swarupa, which is reality, shines only in the state of Turiya, whose nature cannot be, Turiya is beyond waking dream and deep sleep, whose nature cannot be described as such and such. If the four inner organs, antakaranas, and the five outer organs of cognitions, eye, ear, and so on, remain naturally still, with their movements perpetually, mischievous movements perpetually curtailed. Then the Turiya, the Atmaswarupa, itself will become Atita, transcendent, and the self will shine fully in the other avasthas as well. In the other avasthas also, the self will be shining fully when you realize the transcendental nature of the self, the Turiya avastha, which is beyond the waking dream and deep sleep and standalone. How is it experienced? When the four inner organs, Antakaranas, the Manas, Buddhi, Ahankara, and Chitta, those are the Antakaranas. All of them are naturally still. And the five outer organs of ears, nose, taste, tongue, taste, smell, and touch, these are naturally still. How they are naturally still? We understand that these jnana-anubhavas only bring us anatma jnana. It can never bring us atma jnana because they themselves, the instruments themselves are anatmas. That how do you determine that these instruments are anatmas? Because they can be known, they can be seen, they can be known. Anything that can be known or seen cannot be the self which is beyond knowing and seeing. The triputis of knower, knowing, known, seer, seeing, seen, they are transcended by the self. So whenever you are in the experience of knower, knowing, known, seer, seeing, seen, the knower, knowing, known being built by the antakaranas, the four antakaranas, the seer, seeing, seen, and including the other senses being built by the jnanendriyas, all these experiences are of the non-self. Once you start realizing that, then the roving of the eyes, the search of the ears for various sounds, they all naturally become quiet because you realize that you cannot see the self through them. Can you see Bhagavan's reality? Can you see your friend's reality through your eyes? You can't see because whatever you see is anatma. You can see only the anatma part of that person. You can see only the anatma part of the world. Can you know the reality or the self of your friend? Obviously, you can only see the anatma part through thought. The anatma part of the world only can be seen through thought. So, the atma can be seen only in one place. We feel there are many atmas, but since they are knowable through these antakaranas, they are all anatma only. They are still the anatma portion of that person whom you call as mother, brother, sister. If you say that consciousness within them only I am naming and calling, since you can see that from here, it is only the anatma. How to see the atma within them? Bhagavan says to the Maharani that to see the atma in another, to see God in another, you cannot think of them and superimpose the thought, God is within them. In fact, to turn the attention inward and remove all the anatmas, remove the thoughts from the consciousness. The consciousness within, purged of thoughts, is felt as the self of all. Is felt as the self of all directly, without any of these antakaranas. When you want to see the self of this whole universe, the self of your friend, the self of yourself, there is only one place to search because there is only one self that is beyond the waking dream and deep sleep. The only way to know that is to let go of the actions of the jnanendriyas and stop using thought, still the I, and that is where the I, the self of all, can be experienced. Once this becomes a practical reality and the vasanas towards the objective world and vasanas of the antakarana thinking are all demolished in sadhana, The natural stillness of the Antakaranas and the Jnanendriyas means one is abiding in the Turiya Avastha, one is abiding in the self, with the clarity that there is no way you can see the self by anxiously looking, seeing, thinking. There is only one self, and that can be seen only by dropping the Antakaranas and the Jnanendriyas, stilling them, and directly experiencing the I, which can be standalone. When it is unconnected with any of this, it is called as Turiya Tita. The Turiya is the Adhara for waking dream and deep sleep. When we experience this Purana as standalone, without anything else, that itself is Turiya Tita. When one realizes that, then one realizes that the self is experienced in all the states. All the states are merely witnessed. But then one has to come to the brass tacks of sadhana. Without sadhana, all this, the more deeper the direct path, the more important that you discuss less of theory and practice the sadhana given. Because otherwise it will be merely mental concept. Therefore, one should discuss these things, but then quickly resort to the practice of Atma Vicharam. That is what we are going to do for the next 15 minutes or so. Let us sit in Atma Vicharam, naturally stilling the Jnanendriyas, go inward, still the Antakaranas. Whenever thought arises indicating the Antakaranas are active, inquire, for whom is this thought? The answer will always come, this thought is to me. That thought is taken to its seed form within the I. What appears outside the I? By asking for whom is this thought? You are taking both the thinker and the thought in their seed form within the I thought. This is repeated till everything is Vyapti. The Sarvam Idam is Vyapti, is contained within the Aham. And that is how the Turiya is experienced or reveals itself. Let's sit in Atma Vicharam for the next 15 minutes or so. Revatima, you can set the time for us. Namo. Namo Ramana. May I request Dileep Simhaji to give us the summing up remarks?
Namo Ramana, sir.
Namo Ramana.
Very beautiful two verses which emphasizes Bhagavan's teaching that self alone is real, and all these manifestations, whether it is in the dream or in the waking, as these senses or the world, is all nothing but a mental creation. In fact, today morning, Venkatesh ji had put a message, and Nandakumarji had emphasized that's the beauty of Bhagavan's teaching, that it reveals directly that other than the self, everything is just imaginary. In fact, there is a conversation wherein somebody comes and asks Bhagavan, what if Arunachala and Apitakuchamba appear? What would you ask of them? Bhagavan would says that I'll ask them not to come in this form and deceive. I'll ask them to appear as the self of within. So all that we see outside is obviously a mental imagination, and which is similar to the dream. And Nandakumarji very beautifully said, this is the viveka, this is the knowledge. But like the viveka of knowing that sugar is sweet doesn't give us the experience of having tasted or tasting the sugar. We may know that sugar is sweet, but it is only in the experience of the sugar the real happiness is. So though these two verses, he very beautifully said, will give us the viveka. In the first verse, it is very beautifully said that the Gnani sees everything as just a mental imagination, the world, the appearing world and all, whereas the person who takes the world to be real will go through all the ups and downs, whereas the Gnani sees them everything as nothing but a mental creation. And in the second verse, it was beautifully revealed that when all the senses, whether the inner organs, as Nandakumarji beautifully said, the mind, the intellect, the chit, and the ahankara, and all the external organs of cognitions, all of them, when they are curtailed, they are made silent. That means, in the first verse, when we understand them, that all of them are appearing because of my mental imagination. And when I don't attend to them, they become silent. And when they become silent, then we transcend from the waking dream and sleep and all of that and enter a state called Turiya, which cannot be described as so and so. It is the mauna of the self. And that alone will remain absorbing everything. Therefore, Bhagavan says that Turiya itself will become Atita. So, and that is the real practical, that is the real tasting of the sugar. Whereas the Viveka is giving us a very clear information that all of this world and all of these senses and their input, all of that is only nothing but a mental imagination. So with Bhagwan's immense grace, we have been made to know what is the Viveka, and we have also made to know what is the real experience of it. Thank you, sir. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana, sir. Thank you so much for that. May I request Vaibhavji and Pratnama to do the chanting of the Ashtotram. Namo Ramana, Vaibhavji, Namo Ramana, Pratnama.
नमो रमणा। भारद्वाज विश्वनाथ विरचितं श्री रमणाष्टोत्तर शतनामावलिः अपार सच्चित् सुखवादिराशे यस्योर्विमात्रं भुवनं समस्तं गुहाहितं तं रमणं गभीरं चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि। ॐ महासेन महंसेन जाताय नमः। ॐ श्रीरमणाय नमः। ॐ गुरवे नमः। ॐ अखण्ड संविदाकाराय नमः। ॐ महौजसे नमः। ॐ कारणोद्भवाय नमः। ॐ जगदीतावताराय नमः। ॐ श्रीभूमिनाथस्थलोत्थिताय नमः। ॐ पराशरकुलोत्तंसाय नमः। ॐ सुन्दराय तपःफलाय नमः। ॐ कमनीय सुचारित्राय नमः। ॐ सहायाम्बा सहायवते नमः। ॐ श्रोणाचलमहोलीनमानसाय नमः। ॐ स्वर्णहस्तकाय नमः। ॐ श्रीमद्वादशान्तमहास्थले लब्धविद्योदयाय नमः। ॐ महाशक्तिनिपातेन प्रबुद्धाय नमः। ॐ परमार्थविदे नमः। ॐ तीव्राय नमः। ॐ पितृपदान्वेषिणे नमः। ॐ इन्दुमौलिना पितृमते नमः। ॐ पितुरादेशतः शोणशैलं प्राप्ताय नमः। ॐ तपोमयाय नमः। ॐ उदासीनाय नमः। ॐ महायोगिने नमः। ॐ महोत्साहाय नमः। ॐ कुशाग्रदीये नमः। ॐ शान्तसङ्कल्पसंरम्भाय नमः। ॐ सुसन्दृशे नमः। ॐ सवित्रे नमः। ॐ स्थिराय नमः। ॐ तपक्षपितसर्वाङ्गाय नमः। ॐ पुल्लाम्बुजविलोचनाय नमः। ॐ चन्द्रिकासितहासश्रीमण्डिताननमण्डलाय नमः। ॐ च्यूतवाट्यां समासीनाय नमः। ॐ चूडिताखिलविभ्रमाय नमः। ॐ वेदवेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञाय नमः। ॐ चिन्मुद्रिणे नमः। ॐ त्रिगुणातिगाय नमः। ॐ विरूपाक्षगुहावासाय नमः। ॐ विराजितचलाकृतये नमः। ॐ उद्दीप्तनयनाय नमः। ॐ पूर्णाय नमः। ॐ रचिताशरताण्डवाय नमः। ॐ गम्भीराय नमः। ॐ परमाचार्याय नमः। ॐ सुप्रसन्नाय नमः। ॐ अभयप्रदाय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणास्यनिधाय नमः। ॐ धीराय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः। ॐ स्वराजे नमः। ॐ महर्षये नमः। ॐ भगवते नमः। ॐ ईड्याय नमः। ॐ भूमविद्याविशारदाय नमः। ॐ विमलाय नमः। ॐ दीर्घदर्शिने नमः। ॐ आप्ताय नमः। ॐ ऋजुमार्गप्रदर्शकाय नमः। ॐ समदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्यदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्याय नमः। ॐ प्रशान्ताय नमः। ॐ अमितविक्रमाय नमः। ॐ सुकुमाराय नमः। ॐ सदानन्दाय नमः। ॐ मृदुभाषिणे नमः। ॐ दयाळवाय नमः। ॐ श्रीशोणाचलहृद्बोधस्कन्दाश्रमनिकेतनाय नमः। ॐ सद्दर्शनोपदेश्रे नमः। ॐ सद्भक्तवृन्दपरिवृताय नमः। ॐ गणेशमुनिभृङ्गेन सेविताग्रसरोरुहाय नमः। ॐ गीतोपदेशसारादिग्रन्थसञ्चिन्नसंशयाय नमः। ॐ वर्णाश्रममतातीताय नमः। ॐ रसज्ञाय नमः। ॐ सौम्याय नमः। ॐ आत्मवते नमः। ॐ सर्वावनिमतस्थानाम् आराध्याय नमः। ॐ सर्वसद्गुणिने नमः। ॐ आत्मारामाय नमः। ॐ महाभागाय नमः। ॐ मातृमुक्तिविधायकाय नमः। ॐ विदताय नमः। ॐ विनुताय नमः। ॐ विप्राय नमः। ॐ मुनीन्द्राय नमः। ॐ पावकोज्ज्वलाय नमः। ॐ दर्शनादकसंहारिणे नमः। ॐ मौनेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः। ॐ ऋचान्तिकरसान्निध्याय नमः। ॐ स्मरणाबन्धमोचकाय नमः। ॐ अन्तस्तिमिरचण्डांशवे नमः। ॐ संसारार्णवतारकाय नमः। ॐ शोणादृशस्तुतिद्रष्टे नमः। ॐ हार्दविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः। ॐ अविच्युतनिजप्रज्ञाय नमः। ॐ नैसर्गिकमहातपसे नमः। ॐ कमण्डलुधराय नमः। ॐ शुभ्रकौपीनवसनाय नमः। ॐ गुहाय नमः। ॐ दण्डपाणये नमः। ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः। ॐ भवरोगविषग्वराय नमः। ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः। ॐ देवतमाय नमः। ॐ अमर्त्याय नमः। ॐ सेनान्ध्ये नमः। ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः। ॐ श्रीरमण भगवते नमः। श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तरशतनामपूजां समर्पयामि। यस्थानो अरुणाचलस्य पदयोः स्मृत्याजनिं प्राप्यत दिव्यानुग्रहसुप्रवाहविवशस्तादात्म्यभावं गतः ऋन्निष्ठस्वरधीरनित्यतपसा लोकान् पुनासेकरात् तस्मै श्रीरमणाय ते नमः इदं लोकोत्तरज्योतिषे। ॐ नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय।
Namo Ramana to all. Namo Ramana Vaibhaji, Pratnama.